Like, people say that Luke's plan was worth it. I'm like, why then was the most important part of his plan telling a 13-year-old girl that she was actually the one responsible for everything that he was doing?
Oh my gosh.
Percy Jackson.
Just because of who I am as a person, I have to like talk about like what like Silena actually went through, because it does bother me how most of what people know of her character is talking about her romances, even with Charlie. But there's a lot that she just told you about
Mm-hmm.
that she went through, and I feel like people skate over it because I don't think that people would like Luke
Yeah.
if they actually talked about it. And maybe people don't want to talk about it because they don't want to actually think about it, but this is quite literally my life. And so I think about it anyway, so I'll talk about it. Like, the older man that did this to me was my father, and so I
Mm-hmm.
know exactly what this is like. Luke knows about everything that's going on at camp when he basically, as soon as he leaves in the Lightning Thief. And
Mm-hmm.
so in Sea of Monsters, he knows about everything going on because of Silena telling him things from that early on. Silena in that book is like 13,
Mm-hmm.
and she's like 13 or 14 at the oldest, and he is 20.
Yeah.
And I just want to imagine Luke at camp and knowing that Silena has a crush on him, and going up to this young girl who's in like middle school when he's like 19, 20 years old, and coming up to her and flirting, but not really because he's an adult and she's a child with her, and saying what she would want him to hear, or like what she would want to hear from him, and getting her to agree to help him with this stuff, and telling her like, oh, if you help me, you'll be helping because I won't hurt as many of our friends if you tell me what's going on. And then as more time goes on, and she sees people getting hurt, and she sees people dying, and she realizes slowly that Luke isn't like doing the things that he said he would. If you don't want to help me anymore, I'll tell everybody what you've been doing this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot state enough, this is literally what happens when people groom children.
Yes.
Like, Luke is a little bit younger maybe, but this is literally the exact steps of what happens when people groom children. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what I one thing about my own memories, I am still afraid the police are after me.
Jeez.
Why? I don't know. But
Yeah.
I was afraid then, and there's still a part of my brain that won't let go of the idea that the police are going to throw me in jail for something, because he made me feel like it was my fault. Like, um it's like the way that Silena phrases things is the extremely distorted way that when you go through that, as especially when it starts when you're a kid, that is how you see things in such a distorted way. And this is why I get frustrated when people say, like, when they are talking to grooming victims, like, oh, just tell them to get out or whatever. Like, I sometimes wonder every day, like, how many times somebody who's being groomed says something to somebody about how they are, but they don't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
I know, like, Becky said something to us about that, which is something that I try not to think about. Like, the thing that she said to us specifically, it's on our public profile, so anyone can see it. But she said that she thought that she was telling a doctor about things that were going on in her life for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that then after 10 years, the doctor said and she said the way she phrased it was, I thought I was being explicit about it. And then suddenly the doctor was like shocked and was like, wait, what do you mean? Like, what are you saying? And she said, like, that I was not having like an epiphany moment like she was. And it
Mm-hmm.
was like, how could you not? That happens so much where we say things, but because the way that we talk about them is so far away from like what is actually happening, the because it's what we've been told how
Yeah.
this stuff is happening and stuff, that it comes out and people don't realize what you're actually saying. Like, that kind of stuff happened with me all the time with so many people. I would say things and they wouldn't react because they didn't understand what I was really saying. But when it's going on with you, that makes you think like, oh yeah, it is not that big of a deal because they didn't react. And
Mhm.
so obviously I'm being over dramatic by thinking that it's worse because I just said something and they don't get it. And they never understood what you were trying to say.
Mhm.
I was 12 and I thought that my parents' divorce was my fault. I thought that everything was my fault. I thought that my dad not being happy was my fault. I thought that every bad thing that was going on, which was a lot at the time with my family, I thought that it was all my fault.
Mhm.
I thought everything was my fault, and I was 12. I was 12. And that's what I thought. That's why I still have a hard time believing that people like me. Because those sort of things, it's hard to like completely let them go, especially when the person that did that is your father. It's hard to like completely just the way that they like warp your mind, that I thought that I was doing something wrong, that the things that he was doing to me was my fault. And like similar to when Silena says that was that Luke told her like, oh, if you want to if you want to stop, I'm going to tell everybody else what you're doing, as if that wouldn't make immediately everybody like just want to help her. Like, yeah, you can understand maybe some people might be upset, but most people would react polar opposite to that. They would want to help her and they would be absolutely like horrified beyond belief by what he was doing. He would
Yeah.
never tell anybody what he was doing. Never. Because they would never want to set foot near him after if they found out that he was using and abusing this young girl, and the way that she thought about him made her feel like he actually was actually interested in her when he never was, and then used her to get ahead so that he could kill all of her friends and family and leave her alone. he
Mhm.
would they would never want anything to do with him. He was never going to tell anybody what they were doing, but you feel like everyone is going to blame you because they say that.
Yeah.
And like they literally say that. Like my dad used to tell me that it was my fault of why these things were happening. That it was I was doing something. And that is very common when people do those things with children, no matter what age. When you're under the age of 18 and somebody is much older, and things with Luke count most definitely. He's like 5 or 6 years older than her.
Mhm.
They do. They make you feel like it's your fault, that you're doing something wrong, that you've done something to make them have that reaction. It's not about you at all. It's
Mhm.
about it's about them and what they want to get out of it and what they get by doing that to you. But you don't realize that because they tell you over and over again that it's your fault, and it feels better to think that it's your fault because you think that you can control your own actions. If it's me, if it's not me, then there is nothing I can control. And so it's honestly scarier to believe that it's not your fault for a while. Told, like I said in the beginning of the book, like Selena's not an idiot. He must have said something to her to make her think that he wouldn't have hurt Charlie, for her to tell him where where the Princess Andromeda was, or like who was going to go to that ship to try to stop them. And yeah, he told her that he wouldn't hurt Charlie, and then he blew him up
Mhm.
and knew that he was going to kill her the entire time. It was Kronos talking to her, promising that. It
Yeah.
wasn't even Luke at that point. It was Kronos using Luke's voice
Yep.
to talk to her like that for at least 6 months. And so that is like the steps of being groomed until the point where you get to like Silena did, where you don't want to live anymore.
Mhm.
That's literally how it goes. Is once you're like self-aware enough to realize what they've actually been doing to you, and Charlie dying was her realizing like he is never going to listen to me. He's not actually. I haven't been doing anything good all of this time. What have I been doing? That
Yeah.
was her fully realizing that and not being able to ignore it anymore. And she did something that would make her life end because she didn't think there was a point to her living anymore. And most people, when you get to that point, when you've been groomed like that, you don't think there's a reason for you to live anymore. Like,
Mhm.
I was so depressed when I was 12. I remember being in at Christmas with my family and being so depressed that I was numb. I didn't care about any of the presents my family gave me. I didn't care about anything. I didn't care nothing. I was in 7th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, and I felt like there was no point to life anymore. It
Yeah.
just that's what that does to you. you feel like they just like destroyed who you are from the inside out and there's nothing left. And so I know that reading that scene with this, with Silena, of her having a helmet like melted to her face, is a horrifying way of dying. And like, it is nice that Clarice was like screaming in a way that usually people don't when that stuff goes on, because they usually don't realize like how not much you want to live anymore until things get to a certain point where it's like sometimes too far.
Yeah.
But it needed to be like that. And that is what Selena as a character should represent, is what grooming and abuse like that actually does to you. It destroys your entire life.
Yeah.
And it is a battle. Like when I went to my heavy duty treatment program when I went in like the end of 2019, like I said, the way that my like godsend of a therapist who literally saved my life when I was there, I think about him sometimes and just cry because of how like what he did for me. Um, he told me that the way that he talked about it, when I was leaving, he was like, "You were hanging on to the edge of a cliff with like your fingertips, and we're about to go like barreling off the edge." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's honest." That, and I had said like, "Yeah, that's honestly what it was." And he basically just said like, "You were hanging on for dear life. I had like no idea why you were." And I'm like, "No, I had no idea why I was even trying anymore." But I just did. And so that's what that is like. And people, you don't have a
Yeah.
story like this that is meant for middle school age children who are the usual age of children that get groomed by older people.
Yeah.
Though that is
Especially
usually
like,
the age when these things, how many stories have been in the news in the last couple years of children that started getting groomed at the age of 11 or 12 or 13 on goddamn Discord? It's always
yeah.
on Discord, but whenever there's a YouTuber particularly that gets exposed for that, it's always kids that are like 12. That is usually the age they are when they start. Like, you don't write a book that is meant for middle school kids and have a storyline like this by accident.
Mhm.
He put this in on purpose because him and Becky want people to know what this is like.
Yeah.
And it bothers me that it feels just like, of course, somehow the thing that people talk about Selena the most is if she's going to get together with Clarice. That is like seventh down of what is the most popular thing about Selena as a character. Like, I love Selena and I want her to have the chance to be her own person, to be her own character. She
Mhm.
is a kind, like, sweet girl who, like, taught everybody at camp how to ride Pegasus and cares about people and wanted to help people. And the entire reason why Luke was ever able to trap her into that is because she thought that Luke was a good person and because she wanted to help.
Mhm.
She wanted to help when she realized what was going on. And she was like, "I'm not that good of a fighter, so I can't really help in battle, but maybe this is a way that I can help and contribute and help everybody."